Big game four victory for the Knicks on Sunday as they rallied in the Motor City to knock off the Pistons 94-93. They now have a commanding 3-1 lead in their first round playoff series with Detroit. So let's talk some Knicks hoops. We're going to do it with the Dean of Knicks Film School. His name is Jonathan Macri. You know who he is, and he joins me now. J-Mac, what's going on?
It was nice and refreshing to hear you talk about a Knicks win because all I've been hearing, I feel like for the since last night, is how a game was stolen from the Detroit Pistons and the other party involved there. I'm not even sure who it is, but you just reminded me. So thank you so much for that.
J-Mac, I wonder who's been saying that. I wonder who might be saying that the game has been stolen. Because I haven't heard it from Knicks fans. Just letting you know, I
No,
haven't heard it from them. So you
no.
know where that's coming from.
Look, man, I know we're going to get into it, but on a serious note, you can't pick and choose when you want to be aggrieved when the refs maybe don't make a call in your way, which seems like a little bit of what's happening right now.
Seems like it just might be a bit of it. We're not even going to get to that call. We're not going to get to that because the Knicks did tremendous things before we got to that non-call at the end of the game. But J-Mac, I'm going to say this is my first question for you because you've been watching the Knicks for a long time. And I think when you watch these playoffs games like this, you start thinking about the memories, the things you've seen over the years. So where does the Game 4 comeback that we saw against the Pistons with the incredible shot making that we saw from Karl-Anthony Towns in particular, where does this game rank in terms of best Knicks playoff wins that you have seen?
I mean, I go back about as far as you do, Dex, middle of the 90s. I mean, the year they made the finals in 1994 is the first year that really stands out in my the annals of my brain. When you phrase it like that, where it's the combination of a comeback win where not only are you down by double digits in the fourth quarter, but the team went through a 16-minute stretch in which they scored 16 total points. And they looked like they were completely dead in the water, to say nothing of the fact that Jalen Brunson was back in the locker room. And we didn't know, was he going to make it back onto the court in this game, let alone, in this series. So the odds were long. And then when you factor in the shot making and obviously, talking about Karl-Anthony Towns, and he hits 3 baskets in the final 3 minutes, two of which were some of the craziest buckets you'll ever see. I mean, the only shot that I could remember that, the stakes were a little bit different because it was a regular season game, but it was also at the very end of regulation, was the Julius Randle shot against the Miami Heat from a few years ago with, Pat Riley looking on in the background. But as far as a series of shot making in the playoffs with a fourth quarter comeback, I gotta say, I think this one kind of stands alone on its own island. I don't know that there is a perfect comp for it, and if there is, I can't think of one.
Yeah, I was thinking about it myself, and I wasn't sure. I was like, you can go Game 5, Miami 99, but I don't think the shot making was quite as good in that game. That's a game I've watched multiple times. This is up there. At least I'll say that. I don't know where you rank it, but it's up there. I think a lot of people who've watched the Knicks for a long time would say that it's up there. Now, here's my other question. All season long, some Knicks fans, not all Knicks fans, have been comparing this year's team to last year's squad. I think you've talked about it a lot on your
Yeah.
channel. I think that's happening.
Yep.
And, they've been wondering, and I get it, they've been wondering what's the identity of this team. So on New York God Game this season, I asked a question. It's about the middle of the season as to whether or not the Knicks' identity was being clutch. Is that their identity? So does the Game 4 victory and then all the victories we've seen from them in this series, does that answer any questions about their identity here?
I think you nailed it, Dex, because if you and I think part of the issue that a lot of fans have, and I'll include myself in that group, is that when you think of the other top teams in the league, you could come up with a very quick 1 or 2 word answer. Oklahoma City defense, Boston Celtics shooting and making a bunch of threes. Cleveland Cavaliers, this beautifully flowing offense where the ball's whizzing around. Denver Nuggets, Nikola Jokic at the heart of everything. And you could go on and on. The Knicks, if you say, okay, what's the identity of the Knicks? If you're talking about how they're built on both ends of the floor, X's and O's, all that sort of stuff, you're not really going to be able to come up with a clear answer. But I think we have now seen a large enough sample size to know that if this team is in a close game, number one, They are not going to get rattled, regardless of the time, place, situation, how many points they're down, what things are not going their way, any of that. And number two, I mean, you don't have to take my word for it. Just look at the NBA voters. They have the best clutch player in the NBA. And I know, Towns made the shots that are going to get replayed ad nauseum, probably, for decades to come. But the performance that Jalen Brunson put on in the fourth quarter of that game was heroic. It was legendary. It was all of the hyperbole that we try to stay away from as a person who talks about sports, but sometimes it's deserved. And I think in this instance, you look at what he did, and he more than earned all of the accolades.
Yeah, no doubt about it. 15 points in that fourth quarter. And look, the Knicks, we've seen it. It's not been all the time. People question their toughness, but you've seen them have the ability to be clutch this season. And that's why I asked the question midseason, and maybe it's starting to evolve now in the playoffs. Who knows? Maybe that's happening. But you just mentioned about the attention that was given to, and rightfully so, to Cat, to Jalen Brunson for their fourth quarter performances in Game 4. But do you think there were any unsung heroes that stood out to you in the big comeback victory? Because you're going to get a lot of attention for those two guys being the stars, and as I said, rightfully so. But it was a team effort. So were there any unsung heroes in that Game 4 comeback?
Yeah, we got to shout out two guys. First, Mikal Bridges. He finished the game 3 of 12, but 2 of those 3 were positively massive. Anytime a team is trying to make a comeback, there's that, they're starting to push the ball, push that boulder up the hill, and they usually need some sort of quick jolt to get it close to the top before they have a chance to actually get it over to the other side. And Mikal Bridges' 2 threes in the middle of the fourth quarter, I think, gave them that. But more importantly for Bridges, his defense, and he played 44 minutes in this game, was pretty close to impeccable. And as I was watching it, I couldn't help but think to myself, oh, this is the guy in terms of what he was doing on the defensive end that they thought that they traded for by giving up 5 first-round picks. So definitely Bridges. And then the other guy is Josh Hart. And, this is now the 3rd postseason in New York for Hart. And I know this year it was more of an underwhelming regular season, despite some very impressive stats. I think it was a bit of an underwhelming regular season for a lot of Knicks fans from Hart, in large part because of the spacing issues that he creates. And in a lot of games he was out there, you didn't feel like he was making up for those spacing issues in other ways. Well, of course, the playoff starts, and he is a guy that clearly has a switch that he could flip. And he flipped it at the beginning of this postseason. And I might argue that, minute by minute, he has been the most consistent Knick and the most positively impactful Knick from the minute 1 of this series until now, and he was more of the same in Game 4.
Yeah, hard to argue that he's not been the most consistent Knickerbocker here in this series. And great points about Mikal Bridges. We know the fan base has given him a lot of grief, and sometimes rightfully so, but his defense was tremendous in Game 4. And listen, you go 3 of 12, but if you hit the 2 biggest shots, well, 2 of the biggest shots, I won't call it the 2 biggest shots of the game, but 2 of the biggest shots of the game, that's all that matters. He hit 2 big shots, and they definitely helped the team come back. All right, last thing for me, J-Mac. Knicks, they can close out the series on Tuesday, Game 5. What's the key to them, or keys, I should say, to them winning Game 5 at the Garden so that they can get ready for round 2, give you and I a little bit of a break? What's the keys to them getting it done?
I think, here's the good thing. The Knicks are in a really good place in that I think from an X's and O's standpoint, they have pretty much figured out the Pistons. Not to say that the Pistons can't still do things that give them problems at both ends of the floor. Clearly, they can. But I think you look at the way the Knicks came out in Game 4. This is around the part in every series where all the teams have kind of made all the adjustments that they're going to make, and it is very clear that they had a workable game plan on offense and in defense. Now, they weren't able to hit enough open threes in the first half of that game, which is why that game got as close as it did, and obviously Pistons ended up taking a big lead. But their process, I think, is fine when they are actually engaged and locked in. I think what you saw in the third quarter, and this is my first thing to keep an eye on, you got to come out in the third quarter because this is now 3 straight games where they have come out in the third quarter and simply not matched, whether it's the intensity, the physicality, being as sharp as the Detroit Pistons. You're the more veteran team. Once you come out of halftime, that should be your time to shine, not the young team that is doing this for the first time. So I want to see how they come out in the third quarter of Game 5. And part of the issue with that, and this is my second thing, and Tim Legler said this on the broadcast yesterday, they were getting so almost baited into taking shots at the rim because the driving lanes were there and the Pistons were saying, come on into the restricted area and we dare you to challenge us. And unfortunately, the Knicks do not have a team full of guys who are great at playing through contact, with the exception of Jalen Brunson. So drive and kick. If you get into the restricted area, don't be afraid to make the next pass. Don't be afraid to just keep the dominoes falling down, getting the ball to the open man. I think they got a little bit lost in the sauce from that perspective in the third quarter on Sunday. Look, we know they could do it. Clearly, they are the better team at this point. We know they have more talent. Just go out there, execute, play your game for 48 minutes, and I have no doubt that they'll be able to take care of business at home.
Hopefully they can take care of business at home Tuesday night at the Garden, Game 5. It's been a while since Knicks fans have seen their team close out a series.
99?
At home, 99. I believe that is the last time. I think you're correct. It's been that long since they've seen that. So hopefully it can happen on Tuesday night. They don't play with their food. J-Mac will be watching, the dean of Knicks Film School. He'll be all over it with the coverage for Game 5 as the Knicks try to close out this series. J-Mac, I'm hoping that Game 5 is a little bit less stressful for you, because I saw some video of you watching the game. It was a little stressful for you. I don't want it to be that stressful for you on Tuesday. So that is the hope.
My blood pressure can't take much more of what the series has had to offer. So yeah, if we could get I don't know, maybe a 9-point win. How about that? Is that too much to ask for?
I think
we'll see.
People will sign up for a 9-point win. I don't think that'd be too much to ask for. I think they would sign up for that. Appreciate you, my friend. We'll talk soon.
Likewise, my friend. Talk soon.